I want to bring in Tim Pagliara, Chief Investment Officer at CapWealth. Tim, thanks so much for joining us this morning. What are your thoughts in the early moments of trading here after this holiday weekend?
Well, I thought the Home Depot report was reasonable. They had a revenue miss, but a lot of that was attributable to the sharp decline in lumber prices. They raised their dividend 10%. This is a healthy company that's just going to have a flat year in a transitional economy. So I wasn't as alarmed by that as everyone else. The debate's still about whether we have a hard landing, a soft landing, or no landing, and what the Fed is going to have to do to bring inflation under control. And that's impacting everything.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about that, too, because we obviously have a persistently, hot labor market. We have inflation that continues to tick up month over month based on our CPI and PPI data that we saw last week. So some Fed officials, like St. Louis Fed President James Bullard, are now warning of a 50 basis point rate hike. How likely is that, in your opinion?
Well, I think it becomes more likely based upon the data. Everyone has been focused on commodity prices and supply chain. And yes, there have been improvements there. But when you look at inflation in an economist model, 2/3 of inflation is wage and benefit costs. And a big component of that today is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We've seen tremendous inflation increases in payments. And so it's hard to envision getting the economy back to where you're going to have a 4% to 5% inflation rate, even then, much less 2%. So the only way the Fed is going to get this under control is if there is a miraculous increase in the labor supply that takes pressure off of labor costs. And that means immigration reform and dealing with the real problem in labor supply, and that's demographics. We just are not growing the population as fast as we are growing the economy.
Absolutely, Tim. Now, you did mention a soft landing, a hard landing, no landing whatsoever. What are you anticipating? How likely could we actually see a recession by the end of the year here?
Well, if we keep using this plane analogy, if these guys were pilots, you'd wonder if they even knew how to fly the plane, because they certainly don't know how to land it. I believe that in the no landing scenario, I think the economy needs to get used to higher interest rates. The Fed has accomplished a lot. That a 5% Treasury and the increase in Treasuries, that has put $60 billion worth of stimulus back into the pockets of savers. So they've got money to spend that they didn't have to spend. And so the speculators are the ones that are being hurt by this increase in rates. The Fed will accommodate that because they wanted to cool off not so much the economy, probably, as much as the speculation in the financial markets and the things that were going to lead to bigger problems down the line. So I think rates will settle in at that 5 to 5.5% terminal rate, and the economy will figure out a way how to function in this new environment.
All right, Tim, I want to, pick your brain a little bit on one of your last comments as well about immigration reform. You said that's needed for the tight labor market. Can you expand a little bit on that? How would you advise, leaders to navigate this area to relieve kind of what we've seen in the labor market so far?
Well, the Republican Party associates immigration reform with the problems at the southern border. And that is a problem. It is one of many problems. But the fact that if you're a British citizen, you can't get a green card to come to the United States and work, that's an even bigger problem. And we are educating some of the best and brightest people in the world, and then they have to leave the country at the same time that you've got $200 billion worth of investment in chip manufacturing plants all over the country. Ohio specifically, the plant that they just they broke ground on, 7,800 construction jobs, and then afterwards, they've got to staff it with a really high quality labor force. Where are those people coming from? That's the problem. It's like building a dozen new hospitals and not having the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare professionals to operate it.
All right,
we
Tim.
need that.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there, but I really appreciate your time, your insight this morning. That's Tim Pagliara, Chief Investment Officer at CapWealth. Thanks so much for joining us again.